You are about to start watching the Great Monarchy Debate live here at the UnHerd Club in London. Now, the first 15 minutes will be broadcast live and free to everyone everywhere, but this is a club event. This is for members. If you want to take part, stay through to the end and ask questions, make sure to head over in the next few minutes to unherd.com/live. Make sure you have a proper account, and that way you can watch all the way through to the end and take part in the questions. There's an incredible offer, £3 for 3 months. It's less than a coffee. Off you go. unherd.com/live. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for making it at this very early date in January. We have a particularly intimate group today, and we're going to throw ourselves in at the deep end in 2026. We're not going to duck the big questions. We're going to be talking today about the monarchy, about our whole theoretical system of government, this institution that has been part of our kingdom and our country for 1,000+ years. And by the end of this evening, we're going to walk out at least knowing the arguments on each side and possibly with a different opinion. We have assembled for this momentous debate an all-star panel. Let me introduce them. Let me actually start on this side, because the motion is this House would end the monarchy with Charles. So that is the motion that is being debated, that Charles will be the last king. To propose the motion, we have YouTube sensation Alex O'Connor, someone who took his philosophy degree and turned it into one of the biggest and most successful channels on the internet. So that is creativity for you and ingenuity. We'll no doubt see a lot of that this evening. Tanya Gold, writer, humorist, analyst, both for The Spectator down the road and also here for UnHerd. Delighted to say she will be seconding the motion that we should end the monarchy with Charles. Cleo Watson will be opposing this motion. She will be saying, no, we should keep Charles, we should keep the king. She is a Westminster insider. She was once, what feels like a long time ago now, Boris Johnson's aide and chargé d'affaires. She then became a novelist and is all sorts of wonderful other things, including a podcaster. But we're very happy that she's going to be defending the monarchy today. And Sebastian Milbank, thinker, critic, writer for The Critic. He's another monarchist, and he's going to be here making that case. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our panelists. A couple of housekeeping notes. If you're watching online, whether you're there or there, I don't know which camera, welcome to you too. We are, I'm afraid, just streaming the first 15 minutes of this. And at that point, it's going to be cruelly cut off, and only UnHerd subscribers will be able to watch the rest of the debate. That may sound incredibly unfair and undemocratic, but it costs £3 for 3 months, which is a much better way to spend your money here in January. So off you go, join us, and then you can take part in the debate for the whole thing. What we're going to do structure-wise, for those in the room, we're going to take a vote. We're just going to do a show of hands, which I'm going to count, before and after. So in fact, the victors tonight are not those who win the absolute argument. They're those who manage to move the needle. Those people who have persuaded some of the souls in this room to change their mind. They will be counted as the victors. Structure-wise, we're going to start with this podium. Each of the speakers is going to make their opening statement. That's going to be the grand debating section. Then I'm going to try to direct a conversation where we attack the arguments of one side, and then I will turn around and try and get the troops on the other side to just really dig into the other side's argument. So I will be the kind of typical journalist, having no principles, just trying to get the drama going. And then the third section will be you guys. So please do store up your questions, points, try and keep them brief. We'll bring you in for that third, and our speakers can answer your questions directly. And at the end, we'll take another vote. So I'm going to sit in the umpire's chair, and I'm going to invite Alex O'Connor to open the motion. Oh no, we haven't done the vote. That's such a good point. I very often forget this. Okay, please raise your hand if you, and I'd really like not to have waverers and people who sit on their hands, because no one's ever going to know. We're not turning the cameras on you for this section. So please consider it almost like a kind of Australian-style vote, where you just have to vote. think if there was a compulsory referendum, which way would you turn, even if you may not have much conviction? Would you find yourself voting to keep the monarchy, or would you find yourself voting to abolish it? So for those people who support the motion, this House would end the monarchy with Charles. Please raise your hands.
Shame.
Okay, thank you. Now, please raise your hand if you oppose the motion and you do not think we should end the monarchy with Charles.
Quite a lot to lose.
Okay, so I'm making it almost exactly 2-1 in this room. I'm making 13 versus 26 is my maths. So I'm going to write that down and we'll do another vote at the end. Without further ado, Alex O'Connor to tell us why we should end the monarchy with Charles.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, please.
I'll try my best.
The irony of beginning with a vote, eh? That's good fun. You're all on camera, by the way. You should be careful. It is still technically illegal in this country to even imagine the overthrow of the monarchy. The High Court was forced to reaffirm that in 2003 after a challenge by The Guardian. I do share something in common with Charles Windsor, which is that, like him, for me, it all started when the Queen died. That moment of unprecedented royal hysteria and, I think, performative grief that would put even the most ambitious propagandist to shame. How dare I say performative? I'm glad you asked. Well, maybe some people were actually kind of upset about this. That's fine. But I did also see newsreaders and journalists and television companies expressing, as if no one's capable of original phrasing, how deeply saddened they were at the passing of the Queen. Okay, maybe. Then what about Ladbrokes, who were also expressing their grief? Or funkypigeon.com, who also were equally devastated. Call me a cynic. Think of Ann Summers, the sex shop. I just cannot seriously believe that these companies are so teary-eyed with patriotism that they mean when they say, as Ann Summers did, advertising that it would shut down its store for an entire day in reverence to the Queen, right above its lingerie and dildo collections. I find that difficult to believe. Perhaps you remember the Speaker of the House of Commons on national television saying, to no objection, that the funeral of the Queen is, quote, the most important event the world will ever see. At the time, I said that this was somewhat evocative of North Koreans wailing in the street over the death of their leader, Kim Jong-il. But I did think, at least they're being forced to do it. And perhaps I wouldn't have said anything, maybe. But then some people protested. As you may know, a man in Edinburgh decided to heckle his former Highness, Prince Andrew, calling him a sick old man. He was dragged away by the police, not before being assaulted by 2 members of the public and arrested and charged. Of course, his assailants were not even questioned. A man in Parliament Square, a barrister, was accosted by the police for holding up, get this, a blank piece of paper, for fear that he might write on it something offensive, such as "not my king," which may amount to a crime. This rather started to annoy me. This family, who without their celebrated and tax-funded pomp and pageantry are nothing more than thinly disguised celebrity, claim a prerogative to rule over you and me by right of blood, officially legitimized by the authority of a god who even the first in line to the throne struggles to properly believe in, and yet has apparently ordained from time immemorial that this particular specific man is to rule this particular specific set of islands, including the top, 16.75% of the biggest island to our side. A god whose true nature was, of course, only finally fully understood by King Henry VIII when he got dissatisfied with his wife, as monarchs in this country will sometimes do. Highness, remember, is a relative term, as I like to remind people. Higher than what? Just who do these fellow Homo sapiens deem themselves to be higher than? And, crucially, on what grounds? You will never, never, in one of these debates, see a royalist defend this institution on its official, ostensible grounds. It never happens. It will always be some practical concern. itself dubious, by the way. What about avoiding a King Starmer or sitting above politics? Or if they really haven't thought about it at all, maybe even tourism. Why? When Charles became the king, his proclamation quite explicitly told us that God had ordained this office to rule over us as liege lord and divinely chosen ruler of the Church of England. Why does nobody ever justify the monarchy with its official justification? Because nobody believes in it anymore. Of course they don't. Not even the king could have such a confused ego. This also forces politicians to lie, by the way, when they're forced to take an oath to the king. They can swear on whatever religious text they like. But Clive Lewis, for example, was made to retake his oath. Why? Does anybody know? It's because he forgot to mention his allegiance not just to Charles, but his heirs and successors, unseen, without which he was not allowed, or was warned that he may not be allowed to take up his seat in Parliament. And given who is currently 8th in line to the throne, I don't blame him for not doing so. And this is, of course, without reference to the particular scandals that we've been treated to over the past few years. I am sometimes asked, well, would you really prefer a King Starmer? Would you really prefer Starmer as your head of state? Well, if it isn't clear, no, I don't want a king at all. But I think this is a particularly unthinking critique at the moment, given that his former highness, I suppose highness isn't always necessarily hereditary after all, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is still now 8th in line to the throne, even now. And what if he ever adopts the orb and scepter? What do we do then? What if he gets the chrism oil rubbed on his chest? He'd probably quite like that, actually, I'm not sure. Remember, this is, as I said before, ordained by God. And it's good for tourism, don't forget that too. And what? Instead of a disgraced, alleged sexual predator as your irremovable head of state and leader of the official church of this country, what you would prefer an elected prime minister? Please, come on, let's get serious. Well, it seems to me that the public would actually share my sentiment if that were to happen. And quite rightly so. He would not be allowed to take office. And perhaps you agree with this sentiment too. But if so, I think you are just one step closer to recognizing that heads of state in the 21st century should at least be sensitive to the will of the people. So recognize the irony in beginning this with a vote. It may be the case that most people support the monarchy, but if that's true, why don't we just make it official? Why don't we take some kind of, I don't know, poll, and we see who's in favour and who's not? And maybe if more people are in favour, then he can stay as head of state. Why don't we do that sort of writ large? You know, long live the king, short live the kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex O'Connor. I now call upon Cleo Watson to lead the case for the opposition against the motion.
I think I should just be clear at this point that my learned friend next to me will be making a slightly more academic defence, I should think. And mine is really in favour of the froth. I'd just like to make a quick note that on the idea of barristers being arrested, I'm quite pro that, and I'm actually married to one. So anyway, well, I know it's frowned upon, and I'm sure, Alex, this will make you spit blood, but I do love the froth. I love the bank holidays. I love stamps and physical money and passports, and I love looking at guests at royal weddings and funerals and their silly hats. I love horses bronking down the mole with a frightened drummer on board. I love bunting and coronation chicken, and I'll die in a ditch for Princess Anne. Binning the Windsors after Charles, I think, is a mistake. We have to think about what we're letting go. Obviously, there's the continuity of the British state as we know it. There's the future of the Commonwealth and the Crown dependencies and the Church of England. There's the sheer gravitas they bring to Remembrance Day that always makes me feel just a little bit weepy. But have you tried the Dutch organic range? By letting them go, we're in real danger of throwing the baby and the organic focaccia thins out with the bathwater. The thing is about the royals is that they do reflect our own families and our own personal lives. On crack, I suppose. Families are complicated, we know that. And the royals' position means that not only do they reflect us, we get to live vicariously through them. Because after all, wouldn't we all love to be able to blank an uncle or two in public at a family funeral? There's divorces, affairs, money problems, and they've got it all. And if you've loved what's come in the last 50 years or so, you're going to love what's coming next, because it won't stop with Charles. Eventually, the Wales children will become adults, and of course, the Sussex children will too. How can you not want to see the sort of Monarch of the Glen, Fresh Prince and Princess of Bel-Air crossover when that happens? Just the thought of Prince George inviting his Californian cousin over to come and tour a Coventry ping pong table manufacturing plant or something like that, it does make you wonder who would actually want to take over their jobs if they were replaced. You'd have to be some kind of psychopath to really want to do it. Okay, the property portfolio is pretty good, and the jewellery. But 90% of what they do is unutterably boring and thankless. Buckingham Palace garden parties, factory visits, the Royal Variety performance, the same how do you do chat, now caught on camera phone with dozens of members of the public every day. And actually, now they have to hug people all the time too. Worse than that, they have to do it in flesh-coloured tights, which I think should be outlawed. That's the real debate, Freddie, for next time. The problem is we do actually need this institution. We don't have a foreign policy, and it follows that we don't really have a defence strategy. We don't have a productive, investable economy. We're not batting investors away, that's for sure. And we all know that the big golden ticket the Prime Minister held last year when he went to Washington was an invitation by the King for a state visit for President Trump. Anyway, who can really be asked to have the big row as well? Anyone who's had any kind of interaction with the state will know the sheer practicalities of converting from one system of government to another just haven't got a chance. We can't get HS2 built on time or on budget. We're not going to be able to peacefully move to another system of government. And I can't believe there actually is a genuine alternative. Obviously, my wiser friend here can speak to the cons of governing systems, but I'm just worried about the general rebrand. If you think Boaty McBoatface was a tedious row, strap in. Proletariat Ascot, anyone? Anton Deck and each of the loose women as regimental colonels. And the warrants, imagine the warrants. Instead of sitting with Twinings and Fortnum and Mason and Ambrosia Custard, they'll be decided by a new presidential overlord. We'll have Keir Starmer's Brill Cream, Rishi Sunak's Adidas sliders, Boris Johnson's condoms. Well, actually, probably not. Maybe even an Anne Summers warrant. In November, Queen Camilla unveiled a spectacular poppy display in my local town. It was a joint initiative by every WI in the kind of local area, and everyone went mad for it. The high street closed down, and they all queued up to get pictures of her unveiling these amazing poppies. Now, this probably speaks more to my troubling character than anyone else's. But as far as charity and volunteering and so on go, why bother if at the very least you aren't going to get to stand in a sports hall and shake Prince Edward's hand? Don't tell me Sir David Beckham's been UNICEFing and sports reliefing for 20 years without at least one eye on his knighthood. Will people really bother if the reward for services to charity is getting tapped on the shoulder with an Arsenal umbrella by Keir Starmer? Personally, I also think we must keep the next generation of royals in their gilded cage, no matter the cost or the optics. What damage might they cause with their newfound freedom? Yes, Prince William can go back to being a helicopter pilot, which he so loved, but eventually the mental health podcast on YouTube must follow, and he'll be hey guysing all over the place. Meanwhile, we'll be sitting down in front of the television on Christmas Day to tune in to the newly christened People's Palace, formerly known as Buckingham, where our new president, George Osborne or Rupert Murdoch or Roy Stewart, tells us about peace and community and what a frightfully good job they're doing, before nodding in the direction of the piano, where Gary Barlow strikes up Ode to Joy. It's enough to make Jeremy Corbyn against republicanism.
Thank you, Cleo. Tanya Gold now to second the case for the proposition of the motion.
Sorry. God, I can hardly see over it. Okay, well, it's lovely to see so many people who care enough about politics to leave the house. It's like water in the desert. Okay, right. I'm not going to argue that Charles III should be our last monarch because constitutional monarchy is not a semi-functional, if very embarrassing, system of rule. Britain has, as the opposition will tell us if they are smart, been peaceful and free in recent centuries on the whole. We remain curiously immune to fascism in Britain, probably because the kind of people who would vote fascist, and it will be a vote, read your histories of the Weimar Republic, are waving flags outside primary schools during a visit from the king, or a lesser relation. That is, we don't have iron fascism in this country, we have velvet dregs of it, and it allows us to patronise foreigners as we ever decline, because we have the second oldest monarchy in the world. Just please don't give me the tourism Paddington Bear argument that seems sort of curiously intertwined. Republics have tourists too. I'm sure many of you have been to France or America. My preference is for a republic because I remain semi-an idealist, and because I live in West Cornwall and I know the evils of the class system, because I have seen it. I've seen children as bright as any losing an arms race they don't even know exists. This makes me furious. It is cruel and it is wasteful. But I'm still too old and jaded to believe that should monarchy disappear, the class system would disappear with it and we would enter some kind of progressive Elysium. Not since Jeremy Corbyn. We would more likely, as in America, get a fresher hell, more badly dressed. When I look at the king, I think exactly the same thing that the novelist Hilary Mantel thought when she first saw him. What a beautiful suit. We may be an unfamously unstylish nation, but our monarchy is not. Like so many things, they hold it for us. No. I argue against monarchy like a true subject, humbly and with love, on mental health grounds, HR grounds. They are human beings. No, they are. Can we really pretend, are we really so dishonest as to pretend that royalty is not agony? Not for us. For us it is endlessly entertaining because they are our toys and we can love them, or say we love them, and break them. No, it is agony for them, for the people Hilary Mantel called in her marvellous essay, Royal Bodies, the pandas. I'm going to talk quite a lot about the pandas. Now, I'm also going to do a small experiment which may well backfire, in which case I will laugh it off. Please raise your hand if you have a child. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, now please raise your hand if you have a child and would like that child to be King of England. There we go. Okay. If there were lots, I was going to say you're all in denial. Okay, so there's not a single person in this room full of monarchists who has a child that they would actually want to be King of England. Okay, that's interesting. So what do we do to the pandas? Principally, we torture them. Since the Victorian period, Elizabeth II's generation and above was largely unscathed because the kind of press intrusion they suffer now didn't exist then. Though I would have loved to have read Elizabeth I's secret diary. Very famously, she was not allowed to have a lover. She didn't feel safe. She didn't feel safe being married because she couldn't marry an Englishman because there would be jealousy. Couldn't marry a foreign prince. Wouldn't get to hang on to her kingdom. But I could argue that George VI's life was shortened by being the sovereign and that his brother Edward VIII didn't want the job at all. Any shrink could tell you that. He left for a woman, his brother left for cigarettes. Princess Margaret lost the man she loved. It was thought the people, that's us, wouldn't have it, and became a not particularly functional alcoholic who was very rude at parties. So did the King's generation. The King has been tortured by the media. Few of us would survive having our intimate sex chats transcribed and published in a newspaper, and was, like his aunt, denied the woman he truly loved. His wife, Queen Camilla, was likewise tortured, though I don't believe the bread rolls thrown in Waitrose story. I do believe Princess Diana would be alive if she hadn't become a member of the royal family. Then there is once Prince Andrew, consciously or not, a beneficiary of sex trafficking. He is possibly, again, consciously or not, I've got my eye on slander here, I don't want to be slanderous, a foreign asset. And if he is a foreign asset, he's too stupid to know he's a foreign asset. Monarchy is not just a personal cruelty to the pandas. It is also jeopardy. And we are very lucky the crown didn't land on his head. And perhaps our liberal democracy wouldn't be so safe, we wouldn't be so safe from fascism if it had landed on his head. He looks to me like a man who would be cheaply bought. It also ruined his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. Monarchy is a drug, you see, for us and for them. For us, it is a recreational drug. For them, it is professional, full-time. Trauma cascades down generations. We all know that. And why did Princess Anne, clearly a very sensible woman, deny her children royal titles? I think it's because she knew that way they would remain sane. Because she knows. Prince William is a parental child, loving and furious. The best line I heard of him was he looks like he wants to punch the door of every car he gets out of. And Prince George looks like he's going exactly the same way. Then there is Harry, the apostate, who told the truth and is despised for it. I have read his whistleblowing memoir, Spare, and I believe it. This is a man so traumatised by his life, he was happier fighting the Taliban. Have you seen the interview he was doing when he was in the Middle East, and he's doing an interview with a journalist with glassy eyes, and they call him, and up he runs and runs up. He would literally rather throw himself into the arms of the Taliban than be a member of the royal family. And we need to admit this to ourselves. We need to admit how vicious and cruel and childish this all is. He told the truth. The system is cruel. It exists to dehumanise him, to be things for us to play with and to project onto rather than think for ourselves, and is exiled for it. I will conclude with W.H. Auden's line, even if he had some really questionable views. But who can live for long in a euphoric dream? Monarchy is madness, and we have proven ourselves unworthy of caring for the pandas, who we instead torture with prurience and intrusion, and that is why Charles III should be the last King of England. It's time to grow up, Britain. Set them free.
Thank you, Tanya. And finally, last but not least, Sebastian Milbank to tell us why we should keep the monarchy.
Right, well, we've heard this evening that we variously that we like the monarchy or that we don't like the monarchy, but we all seem to be baffled about why monarchy. How did it get here? It's this thing that we react against emotionally or for emotionally. And Adam was raising some very good head-scratching questions about why on earth should someone not just have to swear an oath to the monarch, but to all of his heirs and successors? Why on earth should somebody be persecuted because they're disrupting a proclamation? Why are any of these things happening? And I want to suggest that there is an answer, and also, we're treading on very well-trod territory here. We're used to thinking of monarchy as having anachronistic and irrational. But tonight, I want to challenge you to turn these assumptions on their head and look at monarchy as a supremely elegant solution to timeless political problems. So the apparent irrationality of monarchy to modern people stems not from our altogether irrational faith in egalitarianism and meritocracy. Yet, as communists and free marketeers alike have discovered to their persistent cost, human nature does not accord with the idea of the rational, self-serving economic actor. In other words, political institutions exist to serve human communities, and humans are not beings of rational calculation. It's because of this that Hume wrote that reason is and ought to only be the slave of the passions. Whilst reason may reveal the best way to a destination, it's not sufficient to determine human ends, which are driven by our most fundamental desires. Our desires for security, for belonging, for affection. So monarchy may draw the ire of abstract rationalists, but as with Hume, it should command much support from good old English empiricists. Monarchy is a system that has survived the brutal Darwinian filter of social and political evolution. It's the oldest form of government that we know of, a mode of politics already ancient when the Epic of Gilgamesh and Homer's Iliad were written. The kings of antiquity were called shepherds of the people, a domestication of the human race as basic and as obvious as domestication of animals. Nor does this primordial assumption seem to have lost its usefulness. Today, many of the most stable and the most successful societies in the world are monarchies. Northern Europe, wealthy, egalitarian, and uncorrupt, is almost entirely monarchic, from Belgium and the Netherlands to Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Britain herself. In areas of the world struggling with the transition to modernity and the building up of institutions, it has proven a highly effective system. In the Arab world, for instance, monarchies of Jordan, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE all evidence much greater political stability and stronger economic growth than republican neighbours in Iraq, Egypt, Syria, and Iran. Jordan, for example, despite a population of Palestinian refugees almost equal to its entire native citizenry, has survived political and social revolutions that have toppled Arab republics. And none of this is by coincidence. Monarchy solves many fundamental problems inherent to human political and social organisation. In any shared enterprise, a leader is required, a person who can organise the group. Now, as modern people, we want to say we should choose by merit alone. That's the rashest solution. Yet in practice, questions of merit are subjective and indeterminate. How do we establish merit? Is it based on moral virtue, administrative ability, popular support, or military strength? And even if we can determine the right ruler in these terms, and this is a problem in itself, actually affect his appointment, other capable potential leaders may press their own claim to lead, claims which may be seen as legitimate on the basis of merit. Hereditary succession, and the original state of monarchy, the thing that we're supposed to think is the most irrational element, is in fact the most rational element, the thing that is most effective. It's the reason it survived for thousands of years, and the reason we may well survive for thousands of years more. It doesn't perfectly solve this central political problem, but it offers a clear and objective answer to the question of who is to rule and who is to rule after them. And there is your answer. That's why you can't countenance the death of a monarch. That's why you have to swear loyalty to his successors. It's so you don't fight a bloody civil war every time you have to elect a new leader. So the point of a monarchy is not just about expertise. It's not about merit, but stewardship. And in a way, Tanya, you're right to say the monarch suffers, but they suffer in the sense of a Christian servant leader. They're people who take on the burden of governing. And the meritocratic element continues. They get councillors, they have a parliament. We're not calling on them to tell us what to do, and it's still less in the modern British system. We're calling on them to take the curse of absolute power out of the political economy. They're taking the poison onto themselves. And in fact, if you look at the English system, which has come up, our reverence for the rule of law is intimately bound up with its monarchy. We've talked about the oath we swear to the monarchs, but what about the one they swear to us? For over 1,000 years, right back to the very beginning, English kings have sworn, and this is the text in the medieval oath, to grant and keep and by your oath confirm to the peoples of England the laws and customs given to them by the previous just and God-fearing kings. These are servant leaders. So monarchy, in its best form, enthusiastic monarchist, shifts politics away from an existential arena of zero-sum conflict and coercion by vesting sovereignty symbolically into a single figure. And it moves us thus towards a politics based on consent and persuasion. Republicans, in seeking to embrace our parliamentary tradition while excoriating our monarchy, are failing to see how intimately, in England, they're entangled. So far from being an anachronism, this form of government has survived because it is the most adaptable to change and the most adapted to human nature. The monarchy has survived unimaginably vast constitutional and social changes. In so doing, has spared Britain from terrible political violence and upheaval. So the desire to expunge monarchy is closely aligned with the modern urge to deny the messiness and passions of human nature itself. The same impulse that denies the power of our evolved biology is suspicious of our socially evolved political institutions, no matter the evidence of their purpose and success. So, deny monarchy if you want, but you're denying human nature.
That is the 15 minutes that we promised beforehand up. That's the bit that we're broadcasting live to everyone, but the event, the discussion, the Great Monarchy debate is still taking place live here at the UnHerd Club. So to carry on watching and to take part in the Q&A, head over to unherd.com/live, where you can make sure you have an up-to-date UnHerd account, and we'll see you in just a few moments. Go to unherd.com. What are you still doing here? The Great Monarchy Debate, the answer to the future of our institution here in the UK, is still going on. It's live at the UnHerd Club and it's being broadcast at unherd.com/live. You will need an account. It costs £3 for 3 months. It's absolutely worth every penny. Off you go, unherd.com/live. We'll see you there. If you're still watching this, you're missing out because the debate, the future of the monarchy, is taking place right now, live, over at unherd.com/live. We are no longer broadcasting from this channel. We are broadcasting from unherd.com/live. Head over there. You need to log in or get an ultra discounted account at UnHerd. £3 for 3 months. It is insultingly cheap. Off you go. See you there. We're still talking about the future of the monarchy. unherd.com/live with our all-star panel, Alex O'Connor, Sebastian Milbank, Tanya Gold, and Cleo Watson. They're going at it right now. See you over there, unherd.com/live.